Senate roll call, day 15, Friday, March 1st, 2024. Anderson? Here. Baldwin? Here. Barlow? Present. Whiteman? Here. Boner? Here. Bouchard? Brennan? Here. Case? Present. Cooper? Here. Dockstetter? Here. Ellis? Present. French? Here. Murphy? Here. Baru? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? Here. Ide? Here. Jones? Here. Kinski? Here. Kolb? Present. Landon? Excused. Larson? Here. McEwen? Here. Nethercott? Pappas? Here. Rothfuss? Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Steinmetz? Here. Bouchard? Excused. Nethercott? Excused. Rothfuss? Excused. President Driscoll?
Here.
Mr. President, 27 present, 4 excused.
Prayer by Father Thomas Conklin Jr., St. Mary's Cathedral. It's his last day here, so let's make it a good one.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, the week draws to a close, and we are now 3/4 the way through this session with one big and full week ahead. Help us to move quickly through the business of the day. Guide us in our committee meetings, our caucuses, and our floor sessions. Bless us with your grace during our discussions, amendments, and votes. When the day is done, grant those of us on the road safe travel, and give to all of us a restful and rejuvenating weekend. When our heads hit the pillow, may we hear these words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And if you're comfortable, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, both now and forever. Amen.
Got this for you first.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want a few words, parting words outside of prayer if you'd like? Sure. We'll do that. Then we'll do the prayers, guys.
I'd just like to thank you for your work for the people of Wyoming. It's hard, and sometimes you can feel a little beat up because of all the different factors and forces that go into doing what you do. So as one of your constituents and one who has the privilege to pray with and for you, thank you.
Senator Larson, I'm going to give you a real quick privilege of the floor. You can introduce the boys, and they're going to lead us in the pledge.
Hello, my name is Cyrus.
You can lead us in the pledge, and then, are you ready?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Way to go, guys. Senator Larson, you want to introduce them, and so we know who? I didn't have names, or had to use.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't catch it quick enough, but thank you, Mr. President. I'm really excited. I got my son, Chris, here, and his wife, Sabina, and their kids, Cyrus and Otto, and then my wonderful wife, Denise.
Welcome. Doctor for the day, James Egger, MD, Family Medicine, Cheyenne. Don't see him here, so he's around. No nurse for the day. Today in history, 1781, Continental Congress officially adopts the Articles of Confederation, the first Constitution of the United States of America, after ratification by the 13th state, Maryland. Quote for the day, "To be is to do," Socrates. "To do is to be," Jane Paul St. Terry. "Do, be do, be do," Frank Sinatra. Make sure you sign the travel log if you're heading home this weekend, so you can get that in because they need it for their bookkeeping. Today is deadline for interim topic submissions. Submit your proposed topics using the form on the website no later than 4 p.m. today. As a reminder, suggested topics may originate from any source, but the topic must be submitted and presented to the joint committees by a legislator. Joint committees will meet next week to discuss topics. Make sure you get them done. There's not much slack on it. Reading, correction, and approval of the journal.
Mr. President, your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 29, 2024 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Larson, Chairman.
Any objections? Being none, the report is adopted. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, February 29, 2024. Message number 194. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 32, Geologic Sequestration Unitization Amendments. Ayes 56, excused 6. Message number 195, February 29, 2024. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 66, Firefighter Cancer Screening Benefits. Ayes 57, excused 5. Message number 196, February 29, 2024. Mr. President, House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 81, Public Officer Training Amendments. Ayes 57, noes 1, excused 4. Message number 197, February 29, 2024. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 54, Wyoming Reads Day. Ayes 57, noes 1, excused 4. Message number 198, February 29, 2024. Conferees appointed for Joint Conference Committee number 1. Mr. President, House appointed House conferees to meet with the Light Committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 35. House conferees are Representative Washut, Chairman, Representative Crago, and Representative Oakley. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. Got more?
That's
Committee reports. Let's go ahead and read them in.
February 29, 2024. Mr. President, your Committee number 3, Revenue, to whom is referred House Bill 3, engrossed, Property Tax Exemption for Long-Term Homeowners, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Beitman, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Beitman, Chairman. February 29, 2024, Mr. President, your Committee number 3, Revenue, to whom was referred House Bill 45 engrossed, Property Tax Exemption, Residential Structures and Land, respectfully reports back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Beitman, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Beitman, Chairman. February 29, 2024, Mr. President, your Committee number 3, Revenue, to whom was referred House Bill 4 engrossed, Property Tax Refund Program, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Beitman, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Beitman, Chairman. March 1, 2024, Mr. President, your Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred House Bill 43, State Forestry Good Neighbor Positions, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Guru, Kinski, Nethercott, and Salazar. Senator Kinski, Chairman. March 1, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 104, Omnibus Water Bill Planning, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Guru, Kinski, Nethercott, and Salazar. Senator Kinski, Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Sign of enrolled acts. We're at that order of business, sign of enrolled acts. Senate Enrolled Act number 7.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 7, being original Senate File 5, Organ Transplant Recipient Protection, an act relating to insurance.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 7, originally being Senate File number 5. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 8, originally Senate File 9.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 8, being original Senate File 9, Parental Rights in Education 1, an act relating to education.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 8, originally Senate File 9. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 15.
House Enrolled Act Number 15, being original House Bill 74, Public Health Nursing Budget Requests, an act relating to public health and safety.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 15, originally being House Bill number 74. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 16.
House Enrolled Act Number 16, being original House Bill 35, Limitation on Environmental Rulemaking, an act relating to environmental quality.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 16, originally being House Bill 35. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 17.
House Enrolled Act Number 17, being original House Bill 34, Solid Waste Municipal Cease and Transfer Funding, an act relating to the prioritization of municipal solid waste facilities cease and transfer projects.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 17, originally being House Bill number 34. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 18.
House Enrolled Act Number 18, being original House Bill 33, Mining Operations Blasting Requirements, an act relating to environmental quality.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 18, originally being House Bill number 33. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 19.
House Enrolled Act Number 19, being original House Bill 25, Medicaid Third-Party Payer Conditions, an act relating to the Wyoming Medical Assistance and Services Act.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 19, originally being House Bill 25. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 20.
House Enrolled Act Number 20, being original House Bill 15, Health Insurance Reimbursement of Overpayments, an act relating to health insurance.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 20, originally being House Bill number 15. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 21.
House Enrolled Act Number 21, being original House Bill 13, Flow-Through Pools Exemption, an act relating to public health and safety.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 21, originally being House Bill 13. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 22.
House Enrolled Act Number 22, being Original House Bill 12, Wyoming Dairy Marketing Act, repeal, an act relating to agriculture, livestock, and other animals.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 22, originally being House Bill 12. I have so signed. Bills on second reading. Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 4 has an appropriation, and I would ask that it would be referred to the Appropriations Committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Bills on second reading. Senator Cooper.
Thank you. I do have a couple of referrals here. House Bill number 58 has an appropriation. I'd like to refer it to. Okay, we'll get him this afternoon. Thank you.
House Bill 36, second. House Bill 36, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 36, Natural Resource Protection Act.
There is an amendment. Can we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 36, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3, line 18, after.
Senator Boner.
Senator Scott.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, there is an amendment. Can we have that read in?
It's read in.
Mr. President, move adoption of the amendment. Mr. President, if you recall the debate in committee of the whole yesterday, there was a fear that the way this bill was worded, that it would cause us to lose primacy in some of our areas where we have primacy with the federal government. There's thinking that that was a misreading of the act, but this makes it very clear that the governor can make an exception to the implementation to preserve any valid primacy agreement if the effect of the exception is to reduce the adverse impact of federal regulations on this state. I think what this amendment does is simply give the governor formal license to use common sense in this area and removes that particular objection to the bill. I urge its adoption.
Discussion, seeing none. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 36. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 36 has passed the Senate. We're back on the bill. House Bill 36 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 75, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 75, engrossed, public property amendments.
House Bill 75 had been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 93, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 93, engrossed, Animal Reimbursement Program Account Amendments 2.
Senator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had like 3 questions on this bill, House Bill 93, Animal Reimbursement Program Account. We did discuss this. This is an account. It's not a general fund appropriation in this bill, and the account does not revert, and it retains its interest each year. The quarantine mitigation reimbursement portion of the account was established in 2020 in House Bill 99. That the $25,000 level was established at that time. It's important to remember there are 2 components of the account. The first one was established in 2012 with the indemnity for ordered disposal of reactor animals of tuberculosis, scabies, and brucellosis. Part 2 is the quarantine mitigation reimbursement program. It was established in 2020. The $100,000 is not frozen. It is protected to maintain the ability to pay the indemnity for the first component of the disposal if you had a cow that was infected or or another animal. The account could only be assessed to pay for those indemnities until it rises above $100,000 again. So that was kind of answering the three questions.
Further discussion on House Bill 93? House Bill 93, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be heard a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 116, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 116 engrossed, sage-grouse implementation notice to landowners.
There is an amendment. Can we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 116, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy to corrected copy. Page 2, line 12, delete.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 116 and ask for your favorable consideration. This was actually an omission that didn't make it into the standing committee amendment. All that effectively does is just makes it conforming language all the way through the bill that would now say may affect the surface owner. That's all it does.
Thanks, Senator Hicks. Further questions? Further questions? Seeing none. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 116. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 116 is passed the Senate. Back on the bill. House Bill 116, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be heard a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 141, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 141, state land, oil, and gas leases operator requirement.
House Bill 141, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 145, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 145, open banking amendments.
House Bill 145 have been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Consideration of bills on third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, do we have a consent list?
Mr. President, we do have a consent list, and your consent list is as follows. House Bill 9, fuel tax, license information deadline. House Bill 20, school finance, regional cost adjustment study. House Bill 31, peace officer, records and reporting. House Bill 64, fire prevention and electrical safety amendments. House Bill 67, Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund Administration 2. House Bill 70, Local Government Distributions. House Bill 83, Public Retirement, Actuarially Determined Contributions. House Bill 89, Vehicle Lien Amendments.
86.
86, House Bill 86, correction, Vehicle Lien Amendments. House Bill 197, Sales Tax Administration Revisions.
Thank you. Would anyone like any of these removed from the consent list? Senator Case.
I'd like to remove House Bill 67, Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund Administration 2.
Objection, so ordered. Anyone else going once? Senator Beitman.
I'd like to remove House Bill 83, Public Retirement Actuarially Determined Contributions, please.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? We're almost back to general run. Okay. Senator Beitman.
And Mr. President, without objection, I would like to lay back House Bill 197. I have an amendment for that, and I haven't had time to work on it. Is this
We'll
the
have to do
proper
that
time?
later.
Okay.
Pull it from the consent list and then lay it
I'll
back.
pull it from the consent. I would ask to remove House Bill 197, please.
That objection, so ordered. Haven't been, I've got it. Haven't been read three separate times. The question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? House Bill 9, fuel tax, licensee information deadline. House Bill 20, school finance, regional cost adjustment study. House Bill 31, peace officers' records and reporting. House Bill 64, fire prevention and electrical safety amendments. House Bill 70, local government distributions. And House Bill 86, vehicle lien amendments. Pass the Senate. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman?
Aye.
Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter?
Aye.
Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Garou? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Aye. Jones? Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon excused. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
Aye.
On the consent list, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 9, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 9, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 20, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 20, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 31, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 31, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 64, are there any changes? Hicks? Hicks, aye to no. Aye? Aye to no. Closing vote. French, aye to no. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 64, 27 aye, 3 no, 1 excused. House Bill 70, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 70, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 86, are there any changes? Ellis conflict. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 86, 29 aye, 1 excused, 1 conflict.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 9, Fuel Tax, Licensing Information Deadline, House Bill 20, School Finance Regional Cost Adjustment Study, House Bill 31, Peace Officers, Records and Reporting, House Bill 64, Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety Amendments, House Bill 70, Local Government Distributions, and House Bill 86, Vehicle Lien Amendments have passed the Senate. Bills on third reading. House Bill 67, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 67 engrossed, Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund Administration 2, sponsored by Representative Newsom, an act relating to state funds.
Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, you know, there are big changes happening in Wyoming, and you can see it wherever you look. For example, the rapid development of wind energy and other energy forms on our landscapes that we kind of subtly encouraged without really doing anything about thinking ahead on that. The same is happening here. We're subtly encouraging the tourism and recreation sector. We should be glad about that, but that's not we should also at the same time, like we failed to do with renewable energy, is to put in the safeguards and protections for our resources. We should spend as much money on protection of our resources as we do on promoting the resources. We don't do that. We've gone down a path whereby our good Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources, they began to charge fees, created some money in their account. A few years ago, we let them keep more of those fees. A few years ago, we took the Department of Tourism off of the budget and allowed them, imposed a special lodging tax just for them. Both those sources of money are exceeding expectations. There's a lot of money. The state parks fees are generally used to improve and enhance and provide more opportunities in state parks. State parks doesn't necessarily have a mission of preservation or protection. Promotion has become very important. Tourism's explicit mission is to take that money and to promote the state. More people come, more people pay taxes, we have more promotion. It is a driving force where Wyoming, it's changing our state. Our communities are moving towards the same as communities in Montana or Colorado, or even our own parts of our own state, where there's so much promotion, so much tourism, the resources are crowded, locals are crowded out, local people that live there are crowded out. Workers are hard to get, real estate prices go up. Why aren't we thinking about these big impacts first of protecting our landscapes, protecting our wildlife, protecting our resources? Why are we going to pick that up later? And why are we now doing promotion, promotion, promotion? I hope we'll slow down. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I think this bill does exactly the opposite of what the good senator from Fremont County mentions. It helps us to be able to help disperse people where they need to be dispersed. They're coming anyway. The tourists are coming. They love Wyoming. They love the open spaces. It's a big state. But why not be in charge of where our tourists go and what they're doing? And we can do that with this bill. Just a reminder, this bill passed, House Bill 74 passed last year. So, you know, the bill actually gave us the impetus to go ahead and start working towards tourism that we want and recreation that we want, that we'll be in charge of. And all we're doing with this bill basically is providing the governance. The governance that was in the original bill last year that we passed was something that really our leadership wanted a little something more sideboards, more opportunity to maybe get it right. So this was an interim bill. We worked hard on it. We think we have the sideboards we need. We think we have the governance the way we need to have it. We have a lot of oversight between a 9-member board and the natural resource funding, and we'll be able to provide reports to a variety of different people saying how this is working out. And the interesting thing is we heard a lot of folks from all around the state that has provided support for this, almost every corner of the state. City councilors, we had people testify from our county commissioners, we had outdoor groups, we had advocacy groups, we had kids here from various places. A lot of folks really want to see this happen. They want to be able to be part of the change. And I don't think this is really going to affect, you know, our housing prices. We know what affects that. The folks moving in from out of state, buying houses for twice what they're worth, that's what's affecting our houses. This isn't going to affect that. And I think we need to be the drivers of recreation and tourism. We need to be the ones who say, all right, maybe this area has got a little too much going on, so maybe a proposal from that area won't go through. But let's be in charge. Let's be the drivers. Let's get this bill through. Let's get it across the finish line. It's a good bill. The Wyoming people want it. Our advocates want it. I want to be able to go home and say, listen, we worked hard on this bill. The governance is here. It's good. We've got it where we need to get it. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Spoke on this before. My sentiments are along the lines of good senator from Fremont County back there. But my point being is, here again, we're meddling in an area that's better left to the private sector, private enterprise. I just think we're looking like a fascist government here, where state is getting involved in all of the private sectors. Where does it end? I think we're here to make laws, to make the playing field good for everybody in the private sector, and I don't think we should be meddling in this area as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I've listened to some of the things that have been discussed today, but these projects do not have to be for our tourists. The money, yes, is raised from lodging dollars that the tourists pay, but these funds can be used in our own communities for different projects to help our communities. It doesn't have to be something geared toward tourists whatsoever. We had a group of kids from the Northwest here this week, high school kids. They testified in front of our community, and they came up with some wonderful ideas for right there in their town. Their high school has an outdoor club, and they do things such as kayaking and camping, and I don't know, they listed a whole slew of things that these kids do in their high school club, and they came up with projects that they thought would benefit that club. So this money can be used for all ages and for community, just things just for our community. It can be motorized, it can be hiking and biking. It's something available that everybody can apply for this grant money. We've already collected it, we already have it. We're just trying to come up with the ways of spending it. If you vote it down, we've still collected the funds. Please think about voting for this bill.
Further discussion? Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I think we're kind of losing sight of what we're trying to do here with this bill. This bill's trying to just stand up the mechanics of operating it. As the good senator just said, the funds are there, and we're not going to spend the corpus of the funds, you spend the earnings of the funds. And it's modeled after probably the most successful trust fund in the nation. We've got people all around us trying to emulate what we've done with our trust fund, with our wildlife trust fund. This is a great tool to do that with. It ensures that those funds come from somewhere else rather than from the state. So we're not looking to spend state funds to do this. The money's already in place, and as it goes out, it gets leveraged and returns 2, 3, 4, 5 times to the state what the earnings are on the fund. This is a great project. It's a great fund, and it's a great way to operate it. Thank you.
Your Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I haven't ventured into the tourism world much because my life revolves around minerals. Nothing makes me happier than driving past a coal mine to get down here. That's the driving dollar for the state, the minerals. But we have tourism too, and we already have the money in place. I've been part of an organization in the Southwest where we've met countless times in recent years to figure out how we're going to do with recreational motorized traffic in the Southwest. We have a difficult situation where people are venturing off onto private land, doing different things because they're not being directed. And I see this proposal as allowing us to set up parking lots, descriptive signs, explaining where we can go, where we can't go, and allowing those people that are coming. They'll come with or without you. They will, believe me, I know. I influx every summer over on the west side of the state. They'll come regardless, but this allows us to take, for example, what would we do with this? We'd set up a parking area, descriptive sign. This is where you can go publicly. This is where you cannot go. Respect people's private property when you go out. Just little reminders like that. This simply takes the money, directs it to these projects, and allows those at the local level to control the project and direct it. I commend the committee for their good work on this. I support their work, and I support this bill, I support this proposal. Thank you.
Mayor Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. A quick comment is we're happy to have a good senator drive by our coal mine. But I would tell you, with the coal mine, with the new nuclear plant, and all those things coming into town, the first question that two questions that those people ask. They ask, number one, about our schools. Number two, they ask about the recreation opportunities. And I know that we've tried to develop recreation opportunities, but with this bill, it provides us the means to move forward, get some of those walking paths, some of those trails, improve some of our trails that haven't been touched for years. And this is a means to do that, and it's a part of the economic driver. So that when people like the good senator come by our coal mine, maybe they'll stop and go for a walk on our trails. Please vote for the bill.
Discussion, seeing none. House Bill 67, having been read 3 separate times, shall House Bill 67, Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund Administration 2, pass the Senate. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Third reading roll call, House Bill 67. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Brennan? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Dockstader? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Garou? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon excused. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercutt? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Salazar? Aye to no. Hutchings? Aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 67, 20 aye, 10 no, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 67, Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund Administration 2, has passed the Senate. House Bill 83, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 83 engrossed, Public Retirement Actuarially Determined Contributions, sponsored by the Appropriations Committee, an act relating to public employee retirement.
Senator Biden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I pulled this off the consent list because I had a question on the mechanics of this bill. I think I might have been off the floor on committee of the whole. I apologize, but could we have just a small discussion on what the implications would be if this bill were not to pass? It appears to me this is just to prop up this, to make us a more solvent. Does it change the employer to employee contributions, or are we just adding some more money to the fund to make it solvent? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is the gold standard recommendation for how to determine contributions for a retirement pension fund. And so this is what your Appropriations Committee has decided to finally do. What this does is it requires an actuarial determined calculation of how well the fund is funded every other year. And then based on that calculation, there'll be an automatic increase potentially of a contribution, both on the employer and the employee, not to exceed that 0.5% that's in the bill. The contribution divisions between the employer and the employee do not change. So right now, the state pays half, state employees pay half. How individual cities, towns, and counties and school districts do it, that will remain the same. However they do it, if they fully fund, then they're responsible for those costs, but that doesn't change in this bill. What it prevents is the ad hoc determination of when a large surplus of money needs to go into the fund to make sure it's sound. And so what happens is we're then asked randomly, when the fund becomes unsound, to do a surplus of money into it or do massive increases in contributions, either for the employer or the employee. The employer being us, again, so it's that influx of cash. That's hard on the employees. That's hard on us, the state. And so what this does is it requires and allows for these small incremental changes as determined by the actuaries. Now, if the actuaries don't determine that anything is needed, then it won't. It's anticipated right now that there'll need to be 2 additional increases within the coming years. And then after that, it's anticipated that no additional changes will occur. Now, that depends on world events and the markets and other things along those lines. But that's the plan. But really, it gets it out of panic mode and reactionary funding of the plan to a stable system of funding. And it really does allow for the actuaries to rely on a long-term projection with greater confidence.
Thanks, Senator Norcott. Senator Hicks.
I've got one question in here and I can't find it. When we do the actuarially, they'll project that out normally to about 30 years. But one of the things that's always concerned me, and it may be in here, Mr. President, is oftentimes you'll hear the language, well, if it's 70% actuarially sound, that's fine, because it gets back to there's always contributions coming in. And so when we talk about the actuarially soundness and we project this out to 30 years, is that designed to be 100% of the account? And because that's where, back to my colleague from Natrona County, sometimes we get gamed. And the actuarials will say, well, look, the account's sound, it's at 70%, and they project it out at 30 years, and it's still at 70%, and they'll say it's sound because they use a range instead of making sure that that actuarially soundness means it's 100% of the liability that the legislature has is in there. In other words, the account is 100% actuarially sound, that there is no liability associated with the state of Wyoming, that it's fully funded by the employees. And I guess that's a question, how does this work in light of that? And that's my biggest concern with this, is I can't find it. It just talks about actuarially, and I don't understand if that's what it's saying, that it's a 30-year horizon based on 100% funded.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that was a query that I had as well, and I think I found the answer. It's the bottom of page 5, lines 14 into the next page. The way I read it is you cannot reduce the contribution if the funded ratio is less than 99%, based on both market and actuarial basis, and then the next paragraph, subparagraph below, is 30 years. Anyway, so I think that gets to some of it, but certainly it was an interest of mine, and that's where I've went and maybe found some of those answers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President.
Senator Barlow. Senator Kinski.
Mr. President, thank you. To my colleague from Bags, there is a section of statute that I don't believe is reproduced herein, that mandates that we get to 100% on a 30-year basis, actuarial soundness in all funds. And yes, my colleague from Campbell County correctly pointed out on page 5, lines 14 through 19, 99%, but most important is the beginning of that. The actuarially determined contribution rate for a fiscal biennium shall not be decreased if the public employee retirement plan has a funded ratio of less than 99%. So this is designed to ratchet up in small increments, but not ratchet down until full funding is achieved. So I hope that answers the questions. And to my colleague from Sheridan County, yes, what we're trying to do is avoid what we went through with Plan A. Let's get these funds healthy, get them on charter course with small increments over the years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Kinski. Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm reading from the fiscal note, and what Polly put in that was at the current contribution rate, we'll be 100% by 2048. And right now, the plan is $2,548,000,000 short as of January 1st, 2023. So this is serious business. We need to be getting this rate up and putting more money into this. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Kinski for your second time.
And Mr. President, again, for my colleague from Bags, that discussion where, geez, isn't 70% good enough? That happens in committees where we're trying to decide whether to raise the rate or not. And some people say, oh, 70% is good enough, why raise the rate? This is a commitment that the rate is going to be automatically adjusted in small increments until we get to 99% to avoid that political deadlock over, well, isn't 70% good enough, when clearly it's not, based on our experience. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Kinski. Further discussion. Senator Nethercott for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. In light of a question that you likely all get is, when can a COLA occur? And based on our current statutory scheme, until the fund is 100% funded. And so, as the good senator from Natrona County pointed out, it's anticipated that that won't occur if this bill goes into effect and the other retirement bill goes into effect until 2048. At that time, can it be considered whether or not a COLA would be available to state employees? So it's really important. I know a lot of folks are listening and asking for that. And so we're working in that direction. But as indicated, there's a lot of, the fund is 78% funded. We're trying to get to 100%. And we can start having those conversations about additional options for those retirees. But on this plan, it's not until 2048.
Senator Nethercott, further discussion. Seeing none, question being called. Have been read 3 separate times. House Bill 83, Public Retirement Actuarially Determined Contributions, passed the Senate. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 83, third reading roll call. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Garou? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon excused. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Schuler, conflict. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 83, 29 aye, 1 excused, 1 conflict.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 83, Public Retirement, Actuarially Determined Contributions, has passed the Senate. House Bill 138, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 138, State Pools, State Funds, Pool A Participation and Fund Limits, sponsored by the Capital Finance Committee, an act relating to the investment of state funds.
There is an amendment. Can we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 138, third reading amendment number 1, page 1, line 5, delete.
Senator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 138 and ask for your favorable consideration. I think this is a policy decision the body needs to decide, and so that's why I'm bringing it forward. The amendment deletes the section that deals with public television, where the funds in the account are almost doubled by adding $2 million to reach the $5 million requirement to be in Pool A for investment. But we all need to realize this amendment does nothing to change the fund's ability to be in Pool A, as you can see on page 2, line 16. It says on that, in that section, on and after July 1, 2024, any new fund or account that is added to the Pool A investment must be able to reach that $5 million balance. But as you can see, it says any new fund or account that is added. This account is already in Pool A currently and will remain in Pool A. So that shouldn't be a factor in your decision. Last, I guess I'd like to say is this the proper role of government, especially when it is supposed to be a nonpartisan source of information? I ask for your aye vote.
Further discussion. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm in favor of the amendment. I agree with the sentiments of the bringer of the amendment. Here again, where this is literally state-run media in this situation when we're given directly to an entity that is forming opinions that you may not agree with, and so it is partisan, and I think that it's not a good place to be spending our taxpayer money that a lot of the population doesn't agree with the information that they put out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Senator Kinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment, it's a good bill. I'd hate to lose the bill because people voted against the appropriation, so best to get the appropriation out of there and move the bill along. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Senator Nethercott.
On and against the amendment. Looking for my fellow members of the committee to support the bill and the work of the interim. The request comes from the treasurer's office for this bill as currently written. It's not intended to deal with policy. It's intended to make sure that all of the funds located in Pool A meet that requirement, regardless of what they do. And so I know we're trying to do policymaking through this bill, but really it's about making Pool A consistent for a $5 million appropriation. If you want to defund that, the folks downstairs, let's have a conversation about defunding them, because you're not. They still have a trust fund located within Pool A. So all this does is it makes it consistent with all of the other Pool A funds. So if you want to defund state TV, you know, defund state TV, but this isn't the vehicle to do it, because those funds will remain, and it just makes it harder on the treasurer's office regarding that long-term investment strategy. So on and against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the point of consistency, it seems like we're picking one of the funds that we're adding to and not the second one. So we're still appropriating this bill, even if this amendment were passed. So I would say, let's be consistent. Let's actually take the advice of our Appropriations Committee, fund them both so they can both participate in full Pool A to the fullest extent. And that values both programs, not just singling out one for some other purpose. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now we know where the money's going. I'll probably stay with it, but defund state TV, that's tempting. Every morning I get up and my biggest competitor is state government broadcasts. And I run from the private sector. So yeah, you caught my attention there. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I find ourselves in an interesting place. It's a policy debate about trying to do something that it actually doesn't do. And it's somewhat frightening to me that we're actually going to go ahead and cripple investment returns on one of our funds that's already there to make a statement. That's really what we're doing. We're saying we don't like it. We're making a statement. If you want to defund that agency or eliminate it, there's a lot of vehicles to do it. You can bring budget amendments, you can bring bills, there's all kinds of methods. But to just make a statement that actually hurts returns to the state, which actually means that you lose money elsewhere, does that make sense? Do you want to go out and say, we're making it where it's more expensive for something that we fund to do because we want to make a statement that it's a bad thing? Folks, let's do things the right way. Take care of the state. Let's make sure that our funds all return the best money they can. It's gave us great rewards already. When you look through our funds as we've changed our investment policies, that's what this is. This is a change of investment policy to make it more returns so they have less pull on the general fund or the other parts of the government. Do the right thing for Wyoming and do the right thing for yourself. If you hate the agency, have the guts to come out and bring a bill or an amendment to get rid of it that's a direct one. But let's not pull feathers out that hurts all of us and hurts our agencies as we go about it. I find it really frustrating that we're backdoor attacking things that we don't like rather than taking it direct on. If you don't like it, come after it, but don't try to cripple it and cripple all the other funds and pools we have in the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Further discussion on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 138 before the sponsor rises. Anyone? Seeing none? Senator Larson. I'm sorry, I missed you, Senator Hutchins. To Senator Hutchins.
I'm hearing what's the discussion, Mr. Chair, and I want to understand how removing the funding from this Section 3, how it, Section 3A, how it will cripple the entire fund. If someone could thoroughly explain that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, Mr. President. I believe the idea behind the bill is that you need to get the investments up to $5 million in Pool A so you can realize a larger return on that investment. That's the idea. That's the general context of this legislation. I know because of the other provision in the bill that deals with a different agency. And so if you do get up to $5 million, it'll be a better return on investment for everybody. For that reason, on and against, I think this is a good piece of legislation. It's good the way it is. We don't need to muddy the waters and complicate things any further. So I just ask that we move this forward. I probably agree with the bringer of the amendment regarding the issues with state-funded TV. But once again, this is a little bit outside the scope of what we're trying to do with this piece of legislation. So for increasing our return on investment against the amendment.
Senator Larson, then Senator Kinski. Senator Kinski, excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, on and for the amendment, I hate to lose votes on the actual bill because there's this money in there for public television. It's not going to cripple the treasurer's ability to administer Pool A. The $5 million minimum only kicks in after July 1, 2024. It says on and after July 1, 2024, any new fund that is added to Pool A shall have and maintain a cash balance of not less than $5 million. So they'll be able to administer the program without this appropriation in there. It's a good program for Pool A, and I say let's remove the appropriation. I don't want to jeopardize the bill, the final vote on the bill, because that appropriation's in there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Nethercott, your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm surprised that there would be concerns about jeopardizing the bill. I'm troubled by the amendment. I restate my concerns that if you want to defund a program, then do it. This isn't the vehicle. If you have a personal business conflict, declare it. This is TV, not radio. It allows you to communicate with your constituents. We heard testimony this summer that they'll be providing a Wyoming documentary on Vietnam veterans in our state. I know that they do a significant amount of work of ag in the classroom, work on providing that type of educational experience for Wyoming youth. So I'm not sure what the objection here is to our local Wyoming piece, but I would encourage you not to participate in any of the interviews downstairs in the event you're going to vote for this. If you don't want to communicate with your Wyoming constituents, because I'm not aware of any other TV channel that would have that capacity to provide you with that kind of opportunity to communicate with Wyoming constituents. But again, that's not the point of this bill. It is an investment position. Will the fund fail? Will Pool A fail? No. But the Treasurer's Office has said this would make the fund more meaningful. It would allow for that long-term investment to be achieved and make equity across all the funds that participate in Pool A, rather than having a disparity with this particular program. So we can pick the winners and losers of Pool A by picking the winners and losers of programs in the state that we don't like, but that's inappropriate for this bill. So on and against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's really not fair to ask conservatives to say, hey, just look the other way. This is the public media. Look, I did an interview the other day. They don't want to put the stuff that I said. It's biased. Public media is biased. Everyone knows it. Everyone across the state knows it. This amendment's not going to hurt the rest of the fund. The sky's not going to fall. On and for the amendment.
Further discussion? Senator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I kind of want to fight back. I think this is a good place to talk about policy. As it's been said, they're not real, they are partisan in their publications. And so I want to make sure everybody realizes that. It will not hurt their fund. They'll still be in Pool A. It's just a way to add some more money to that fund, kind of in a, I don't know if you want to say a sneaky way or not, but I do want to, and it wasn't brought up, or I mean, I'm not bringing it up, of the viewership of where all this goes. I can't even get it in my section of the state. I get to watch another state that's north of me in their public television. I watch it once in a while, but it would be good if they could serve the whole state and everybody got to hear it, but it doesn't get to me. So I don't think that's the main reason I'm not, it's not the main reason for bringing the bill, but they can still survive. They're in Pool A still, so remember that they can still earn those higher investment earnings.
Senator Larson. We're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 138. It involves money. It'll be a roll call vote.
Third reading roll call vote, third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 138. Anderson? No. Baldwin? No. Barlow? No. Beitman? Aye. Boner? No. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Furphy? No. Garou? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon excused. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On the amendment, 16 aye, 14 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 138 has passed the Senate. We're back on the bill. Further discussion? Seeing none. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall House Bill 138, State Funds Pool A Participation and Fund Limits, pass the Senate? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 138, third reading roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? No. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Furphy? No. Garou? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon excused. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
No.
No. Pappas, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 138, 18 aye, 12 no, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected to the Senate, House Bill 138 has passed the Senate. House Bill 148, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 148 engrossed, regulation of surgical abortions, sponsored by Representative Lawley, an act relating to public health and safety.
There is an amendment. We have the amendment read in, please.
House Bill 148, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 9, line 1, delete.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 148. Ask the body's favorable consideration. Mr. President, we had a good debate on this bill in the Committee of the Whole, and one of the things that really stood out as a concern was the mandatory ultrasound that had to be at least or not less than 48 hours prior to a surgical or chemical abortion. And Mr. President, what this particular amendment does is remove that not less than 48 hours. And the reason it does that is because the intent of the 48 hours, based on my understanding, can be nothing but to create hardship for the woman that is seeking the abortion. I see no other purpose, and I guess I would inquire about the purpose. It was not explained in the debate or the testimony. The 48 hours creates a circumstance where a woman that is interested in receiving surgical or chemical abortion medical treatment has to travel to some location, if they're rural or if they're in most places in the state, travel to receive that ultrasound, where again, if it's an early ultrasound, that is a mandatory forced transvaginal ultrasound that would have to occur in the first 12 weeks. They would have to pay for that, likely out of pocket, because insurance will not cover a procedure that is not medically necessary, and there's absolutely no question that this is not a medically necessary procedure. So at their own expense, they pay to travel, they sacrifice that amount of time, they get the ultrasound, they travel home, or get a hotel room for a couple of days at great expense. And then a couple of days later, they travel back knowing that the procedure was unnecessary to begin with before they can have the medical procedure that they were interested in receiving in the first place. So, Mr. President, this simply tries to reduce that hardship which disproportionately negatively affects our poorer populations, our rural populations, and attempts to deny these women access to affordable, reasonable, prudent health care in contradiction to Article 1, Section 38. So I hope the body will support this removal, which simply helps to reduce that hardship and at least provide direct access to the health care that is being sought. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the amendment by the minority leader. I imagine as we navigate this new legal terrain we're in the Dobbs era, that these are potentially the type of discussions that we're going to have, that we have not been allowed to have for almost 50 years prior to the Dobbs decision. We'll see what our own courts do, but this is down to the state level now. So the reason for, and according to a national level group of OBGYNs, acceptable standard of care is to obtain an ultrasound before performing any significant surgical procedure or even a chemical procedure. It's necessary to know the location of the pregnancy, the gestational age, and especially with the 48-hour requirement, where the unborn child has any cardiac activity. So that's the reason for it. We're going to have depending on what the courts do, we're going to continue to have these types of discussions. If we're put in a position where we're going to regulate abortion instead of them being allowed to outlaw it totally, as we previously voted to do as a body. So on and against the amendment for that reason. I think this is prudent. We want to err on the side of patient safety. That's the point of the bill. And for those reasons, I ask that you oppose the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask for a roll call vote for this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am against the amendment. I like the provision in the bill. The provision in the bill is about informed consent. You know, I've had knee surgery before I go in that you hope for a good outcome, but the surgeon gives you a list of all the things that could go wrong. It may or may not work. Make sure you understand what you're really consenting to. It's called informed consent. that you're not just consenting, but you're informed. This is making sure that before somebody goes through this procedure, they're fully informed about not only the impact on their life, but the life of the child that lies within. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I rise in support of the amendment. I think we have to pass the amendment to restore some small amount of reasonableness to this bill. And reasonableness is our charge. It's the charge in the oath of the Constitution that we all strove to protect. The legislature may determine reasonable and necessary restrictions on the rights granted under this section, and that's the right of healthcare access. The 48-hour rule is not reasonable. We're not the medical board. We're not the ones that get to really decide on medical treatment. And the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists oppose all the restrictions in this bill, including this restriction, which is so invasive. Medicare or medication abortions without ultrasound are safe. The Journal of the American Medical Association states this very clearly. So this restriction is not reasonable. Other restrictions in this bill are not reasonable either, but I support this amendment because it removes an unreasonable restriction which will jeopardize you're all voting for this law and having it upheld by the courts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Against this amendment, when I was a labor and delivery nurse, I was taught that we're not taking care of one life. We're taking care of 2 lives when we take care of a pregnant woman. And with asking for an ultrasound within 48 hours, we're just asking that we can look at the safety of both of the mother and the child. So I would urge us to oppose this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On and against the amendment. During testimony on the ultrasound in the 48 hours, it was brought to our attention, and I didn't know this, that there are a certain number of weeks that these chemicals are effective. And if an ultrasound or the knowledge of where the baby is, if it's viable, all that information, the gestational age, without that knowledge, they may be taking that chemical to no effect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just want to be clear. If a diagnosis of an ultrasound is a non-viable fetus, now we're going to tell a mother that she has to wait 48 hours before she can have that attended to. I want to be clear that's what I understand is being said if you're advocating against this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, for my second time. I'm not sure that the chamber understands necessarily what the bill does and how this amendment affects it. The bill requires that ultrasound occur not less than 48 hours. In other words, you have to have the ultrasound and then wait more than 2 days to have the chemical or surgical procedure. This amendment would just allow the ultrasound to take place, still required. It does not remove the requirement for the ultrasound, which is invasive. It is medically unnecessary. We have experts that make it very clear that you do not need that, whether it's for informed consent or anything else. Totally unnecessary. This amendment, Mr. President, doesn't remove the obligation, even if it's unnecessary. It just says you don't have to go home and wait 2 days before you can come get the medical procedure. So the good senator from Laramie County talking about her experience with the need to provide the opportunity to somebody and to offer these types of services, still mandated. The purpose of the 48-hour exclusion is the financial hardship. The point is trying to limit access. And I understand that. I understand why there's so much support for it. It's because of the opposition to the procedure, not because this is a sensible, reasonable, metered, rational rule. If the desire is to ensure that women cannot have access to a procedure, then honestly, this is probably a good provision because it does just that. It specifically discriminates against women that are trying to seek out what is a legal medical procedure and makes it financially burdensome on them to receive that procedure as a means of circumventing what would be otherwise best practices. Again, going against standard practice of care, going against medical boards and experts, and enforcing the will of this body onto these women that do not share the viewpoint. This amendment provides a modicum of relief, a little bit of freedom, and a little less financial pressure to these women. I'd ask you to support the amendment.
We're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 148. The yeas and nays have been called. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 1, House Bill 148. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner? No. Bouchard? No. Brennan? No. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? No. Ellis? Aye. French? No. Furphy? No. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? No. Kinski? No. Kolb? No. Landon excused. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On the amendment, 12 aye, 18 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 148 has failed to pass the Senate. We are back on the bill. Senator Drew.
Thanks, Mr. President. I don't usually get up on these, Mr. President. Subject of abortion, it's a 50-50 issue. Nothing I'm going to say today is going to change anyone's mind on that, not yours, not anyone else's, Mr. President. But I rise to speak against this bill for the unintended consequence of what this bill does. I've heard a lot this week from my community, OBGYNs, a few that are left in my community. And they're getting ready, Mr. President, to leave practice because of laws like this that put them in positions to make what they do illegal, to make the reporting requirements. They just don't know when someone walks in the door if they're going to be committing an illegal act. So they stop seeing patients. They stop seeing women for their annual exam. They stop seeing patients who have problems or issues in these areas. So now we set up a scenario where my daughter, my wife, can't get health care in my community, in Wyoming. That, to me, is unacceptable. You could have your opinion on a woman's right to choose or not. Myself, I think abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. But what this bill does, make no mistake, it takes another step into criminalizing the medical practice obstetrics, of people doing OBGYN work in the state of Wyoming. So they leave Wyoming. So now we further erode healthcare, we further erode people's right to get adequate healthcare at all. Once again, their annual, I'm not talking about an abortion, I'm talking about just their annual checkup. Check for cervical cancer, things that young women need. Not anymore, not in my community. It's leaving. On and against, Mr. President, on and against.
Mr. President, on and against this bill, and I'm trying to be brief. This bill is one of a series that imposes the moral and ethical beliefs of one set of religious beliefs on people who do not hold those beliefs. And I've told the Senate before, my church believes it is a woman's right to choose. Now, I respect the beliefs of those who disagree with that, because I think they're sincerely based on their religious beliefs. But I think, Mr. President, it is inappropriate for people with those beliefs to impose their beliefs on the rest of us who do not hold them. So for those reasons, and I must say for the practical reasons that were stated before, I must vote no on this bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the bill. And just like to acknowledge the transition we're making here as a state from having this discussion be purely ideological to one where we have to really make thoughtful, considered rules and regulations surrounding this particular activity. If there's a concern about catching OBGYNs in particular who are not performing abortions as a business model, I'd just simply ask anybody to read the bill. We exempt. You can do abortions on occasion and not be regulated under this bill. That's what it says. That was a difficult decision for somebody who is pro-life. But I think it is important to make sure that we're targeting the questionable activity, the unsafe activity that is occurring in this state right now without any regulation at all. So I ask you to support the bill. I hope that we can move forward and make sure that we have accurate discussion about what the bills such as this one does do and what it doesn't do. And I ask you to vote for this common sense piece of legislation that ensures safety while the courts determine whether we can outlaw abortion outright. On and for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we should be thinking about safety. I think we should be thinking about the safety of pregnant women in Wyoming. You know, Mr. President, I was born about a quarter mile from my house. I came to this legislature under the tutelage of a man, a representative that was OB doc in Fremont County. He delivered 5,000 babies in his lifetime. Most of them, a lot of them were Native American babies. He was so revered when he went out to the reservation and campaigned. I'd kind of like to do that, actually, take I-80 West, Mr. President, but right now, women can't have their babies in Fremont County, not very many. And in fact, the big rival city in Fremont County, the big rival to Lander, I won't mention the name, but they're building their own. Can we wait for that to stop? Mr. President, not take it out of my time, that sound? Okay. So There's a rivalry between two towns in Fremont County. They're both good towns. There's one hospital that serves both towns, and the hospital decided not to offer OB services in the other town. And the people in the other town were very angry about that because they wanted their babies to be born in their town. They didn't want to come to the other town to have their babies born. Well, so they're building a new hospital. That's part of it. There's a lot more to it. And good for them. I'm proud of them. But there's no OB services for either one of them. I got a letter from a constituent yesterday. I am writing you this message from out of state, where I'm camped out with my family at 37 weeks pregnant ahead of the birth of my second kiddo. While my first child was born in Lander, very proud that he will be literally born and raised. By the time I became pregnant with our second, the OB care landscape in Fremont County had changed dramatically for the worst. Though I'm extraordinarily lucky to be able to travel for care, I deeply, deeply wish I was home in Lander, or at least in Wyoming, preparing to deliver instead of away. I write these comments from that perspective. This young woman goes on to talk about her first pregnancy, which she had preeclampsia, which is a very serious, life-threatening. We're not doing very good in the United States taking care of women, Mr. President. We rank 50th in terms of infant mortality in the world now. Our ranking has dropped. Every developed country you can imagine does a better job of delivering babies, protecting women's lives, and making sure those babies come safely in this world. Why aren't we talking about that? Why are we chasing medical providers out of the state? Why are we doing that? This poor woman is in Idaho. A good friend of mine recently had her baby in Teton County. My grandchildren, my son was born in Lander, my grandchildren will never be born. They might not even be born in Wyoming. Mr. President, the medical profession, it cuts both ways. These things we do that we think that we're so smart and we know everything. We don't, Mr. President. There are unforeseen consequences. Shouldn't we be able to have our children be born in Wyoming? You come to my town, you can't do it. And I represent a large Native American population. Do you know how those babies often get born? They don't necessarily get the extensive prenatal care. They don't travel to be under the care of a doctor somewhere else. It's appearing at the emergency room, Mr. President, and it's often appearing without any significant prenatal care whatsoever. It's bills like this that kill people. It's not just about the unborn, it's about women and children and our children. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think the thing that's missed here is the pushback on those who stand for life. It's how can you do this when there are women that need to be taken care of? Let me speak for those who stand on the side of life. That's a deep, deep feeling. It goes beyond a piece of legislation here, and that's when those people stand up for a bill like this. It's that deep, deep feeling for life. The other day, that deep feeling for life was portrayed in my introduction to my granddaughter. I apologize for the unprofessionalism that I displayed in that introduction. But it was all related to that deep, deep feeling of respect for life. And that's why those of us who stand for legislation like this stand because deep down we know that life has meaning beyond this floor. I stand for this bill, ask for your vote, favorable vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on against the bill. Mr. President, I think everybody in this chamber has a deep respect for life. off this floor. I think we all share that. I certainly do. And when I look at legislation like this, I look at it in the context of that respect for life. Is this helping people? Is this helping the women in our state that are looking for medical services, healthcare services? Is it making things better for them, for the rest of the state, for children being born in this state? Is it actually doing that? And the answer is bills like this do not do that. They do not. There's no evidence of that taking place, because what this is doing is this is inserting a legislature into a medical decision-making process where we don't belong. Mr. President, there's one member of this Senate that I would take a prescription for an aspirin from. That is our net knowledge of medicine, firsthand practical. And we're trying to make the decisions, the medical decisions, for all of the women in this state based on strongly held personal beliefs, which again get back to the idea that the good tall senator from Bates Creek was talking about, which is that we're really in the realm of religion here and religious freedom, not in healthcare. Nothing about this bill is about healthcare, better healthcare. It's not. There's no motivation in it to provide better healthcare services. It is the motivation that my good friend across the chamber is talking about. Religious beliefs. And that's not where we're supposed to tread. That's not where the history of this country has led us. And when we're doing that, as the motivation for legislation like this, we're not going to end up with good legislation that leads to better healthcare outcomes, Mr. President. Now, Mr. President, there's a few things that I want to address. One is the idea, first and foremost, that this was a national debate and it was a national decision, and now those rights have come down to the states as if we have received the right. Mr. President, we've taken away the right from individuals. It was never at the federal level. It was not a federal decision. It was a recognition of an individual right, which gets back to the fact that we have no regulation in statute at this point in time. Well, Mr. President, that's just inaccurate. Of course we have regulation, because for the past 50 years, this has been contemplated as a standard medical procedure, governed by physicians and the medical community using an appropriate standard practice of care to bring their best services to the people of Wyoming, the women of Wyoming, the kids of Wyoming. That's what we've done until now, and there hasn't been a problem in the last 50 years. The only problem, Mr. President, is that many in this chamber have religious views that are contrary to that medical practice. It doesn't mean the medical practice is unsafe. It doesn't mean that we don't have sufficient regulation. It just means that we're philosophically opposed to it or supportive of it. We don't need an entirely new regulatory and legal structure defined in statute, unique, mind you. Nothing else is defined in statute for medical procedures. If you need a colonoscopy, you don't look to the green books. If you need that knee surgery that was mentioned earlier, details are not in the green book. And I would truly hope that no physician in the state would pick up the green book first as their reference tool when conducting a medical procedure. Now, Mr. President, probably the only good thing about this piece of legislation is how clear it makes it that abortion is a healthcare procedure. It emphasizes that time and again throughout the legislation. Abortion is healthcare. That's what this bill makes clear. It fumbles around as it's doing it, but it definitely waves the flag that abortion is healthcare. And Mr. President, that's at the core of most of this debate. And it's at the core of Article 1, Section 38 of the Wyoming Constitution, which relates to healthcare freedom, protects and preserves healthcare freedom. And this demonstrates how clearly this legislation is violating that freedom. We've discussed the fact that the OBGYNs of this state and of this country do not support this legislation because they know it is contrary to the interests of the health and safety of their patients. We also know that most of this legislation is intended to make it expensive, onerous, and difficult, where we know that health insurance will not cover unnecessary medical procedures, so these mandatory ultrasounds will not necessarily be covered, adding to the financial difficulties of seeking and receiving appropriate health care. And the final thing, Mr. Chairman, that I would say about this legislation is it's pretty carefully structured to really target one facility in the state of Wyoming in particular, and to try and close them down in the center of the state. And Mr. President, that is obviously special legislation, and it's the final reason I would encourage the body to oppose this bill.
Mr. President, very quickly, I wasn't going to stand up on this issue because nothing is going to change on the vote, but I just want to say I honor the chairman of education, I honor the minority leader, they're friends, but I will say, as someone who brought legislation last year on this issue, I don't believe that I have ever brought my religious views to this subject during debate. In fact, I don't believe I've expressed my views on religion, my religion, at all on this particular debate. I don't believe that you have to be part of the religious community to be against abortion. And so I simply want to make that clear that I have never used any type of religious views as a means of furthering my beliefs on the issue of abortion.
Thank you, Senator Salazar. Further discussion? Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, did not intend to visit on this. I find it really interesting, the entire debate. I will be a yes vote on it, but I'm going to do it with a thought. I'm going to make a prediction. We just heard about a bill from last year. We had 2 bills from last year. It's not about black helicopters, it's about black robes. And we hear it all the time, and I always kick back to it. What matches the Constitution and what does not? And I'm going to make you a prediction on this for all of you. This bill gets signed, goes into law, and it goes in front of the courts. And we continue to push further and further. And I say this often in this body. Be careful what you ask for, because courts sometimes give you not what you asked for, but what they read into it. And I think we're on a path that potentially is really interesting. We're up to 2. This will make 3. We're probably going to pile some more on there. And I've watched this happen in other states, and the rulings come down, and they aren't always friendly. Like I said, I'm fine with it. I'm going to vote for it. But I'm not sure for the long term if what you really want to accomplish, that this will get you there. It might get you just the opposite of what you're asking for. Courts do strange things.
Thank you, Mr. President. Further discussion? Further discussion? Question's been called. Question is on, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall House Bill 148 pass the Senate? Roll call.
House Bill 148, third reading, roll call. Anderson? No. Baldwin? No. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Garou? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon excuse. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 148, 24 aye, 6 no, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 148 has passed the Senate. House Bill 197, third reading of the House file.
House Bill 197 engrossed Sales Tax Administration revisions, sponsored by Representative Harshman, an act relating to sales tax.
Senator French.
Mr. President, can I have privilege of the floor? Above in the gallery is, I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Becky, and her youngest brother, Jeff. And as a side note, Becky and I have been together since 1973, long time ago. So if you'd give them a great big welcome and stretch your legs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Without objection, I would ask that House Bill 197 be laid back for one day.
Without objection, House Bill 197 is laid back one day. Signing of enrolled acts. Enrolled Act number 23, House of Representatives.
House Enrolled Act number 23, being original House Bill 66, firefighter cancer screening benefits, an act relating to labor and employment.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 23, originally being House Bill 66. I have so signed. No reports, Randy? All's good. Reports.
March 1, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 29, engrossed Cold Case Database and Investigations, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Case, Cooper, and Schuler. Excused, Senators Furphy and Landon. Senator Cooper, acting chairman. March 1, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred House Bill 58, Forensic Genetic Genealogy Pilot Program. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Case, Cooper, and Schuler. Excused, Senators Furphy and Landon. Senator Cooper, acting chairman. March 1, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred House Bill 77, engrossed, simple assault, menacing. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Case, Cooper, and Schuler. Excused, Senators Furphy and Landon. Senator Cooper, acting chairman. March 1, 2024, Mr. President, Committee Number 4, Education, to whom was referred House Bill 166, engrossed, Education Savings Accounts 1. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Beitman, Brennan, Scott, and Steinmetz. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Scott, chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, House Bill 166, Education Savings Accounts, that was just read in, has an appropriation in it. I ask pursuant to Senate rules that it be re-referred to Committee Number 2.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator Cooper.
Mr. President, House Bill 58 has an appropriation. I'd ask that it be re-referred to Committee Number 2.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator Case.
Read the bill.
Somebody has to say the name.
Senator Cooper. Thank you, Senator Case.
Mr. President, the learning curve is steep. Mr. President, House Bill 58, Forensic Genetic Genealogy Pilot Program, has an appropriation. I'd like to refer to Committee Number 2.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator
President.
Cooper.
House Bill 29, Cold Case Database and Investigations, has an appropriation. I'd like it referred to Committee Number 2.
Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business, consideration of bills on general file.
Mr. President, I move the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole.
Senator Pappas, come forward.
Thank you, everyone. I had pressing business. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, before we go into, do you have an announcement? Okay. Well, the Committee of the Whole, please come to order. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, you have 3 bills between you and getting out of here on Friday. We're going to go all the way down to the omnibus. And then we're going to adjourn for a day or two.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's see, the first bill for our consideration is House Bill 126. Will the reading clerk please read the bill?
House Bill 126 engrossed. Child care is a residential use of property, sponsored by Representative Yun, an act relating to property.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Okay. Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation on House Bill 126. Child care is a residential use of property. There is a standing committee amendment. I ask that it be read in at this time.
House Bill 126, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, to engrossed copy, page 1, line 3, delete.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the standing committee amendment, and for an explanation of the bill and the amendment, I would ask that you call on Senator Boner, and I believe that may wish to speak on this.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is House Bill 126. Deals with an issue that some folks may be familiar with. If you live in an area that has a homeowners association, some sort of covenant, oftentimes it's not allowed to have a business within that residential area. What this bill does is it clarifies that if you have a daycare in your home, that does not qualify as a business. It's an important discussion to have. We're very short of daycare providers. It's hard to find folks who are going to engage in this sort of business. And so right now, these covenants, it could be interpreted, are providing an unnecessary and unfortunate amount of prohibition to what is a very important service that we need more of in the state. So the bill is pretty straightforward. It simply clarifies that if you are watching other people's kids in your house, that is a residential use of property. Clearly, that's a distinction from having a full-on business with lots of people coming and going throughout the day. And so this is a little common sense piece of legislation to clarify that and help support working families in the process. Now, we did have an important amendment in committee that I think gets us at a good spot, a good compromise between the folks who realize and recognize the need for this bill and some of our real estate agents, certainly not all of them. I've heard from lots of real estate agents on both sides of this issue, to be clear. But making sure that some of the real estate agents' concerns are addressed with this. So we have nice, easy, smooth sailing for this bill, hopefully, as it goes through the process. So what the amendment does, it simply puts owners on these homeowners associations that if they don't want childcare in their area, they have to actually go and clarify in their legal agreement, in their contract, whatever it is. And so the onus is on them. So we have an opportunity for them to provide that clarity. This is a compromise that I think it addresses the concerns of all parties. And so I'll stand for questions on the Standing Committee amendment.
Questions on the amendment? Senator Ellis? No? Okay.
Question.
You've heard the question. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to House Bill 126, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that covers it. I'll stand for any questions.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I really like this bill, particularly in my neck of the woods in Du Bois. We're having some problems. My one question is this. We license childcare for individuals. They need to go through a screening, a background check. I'm assuming that those requirements still apply if someone wants to do this in their home. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I would point out one feature of the bill I think is important. As it was introduced, it came to us childcare up to 15 children. The engrossed version, I call your attention to, it's 10 children, so it's a smaller childcare, and I think that is significant and will weigh on the decision that the homeowners associations will make.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer the good senator from Fremont County's inquiry, the requirements about the licensure, if you're watching a certain number of kids, still applies. That shouldn't be affected. And it's been a while since I've read the regulations that the Department of Family Services has provided when it comes to providing childcare. But that's my recollection. I'll double check on that. I just wanted to briefly say the reason I got on this bill is to address a very real need. Certainly my kids have gotten a lot older, but I remember in my daycare years how competitive it is to get on a list. I had my kids at a particular daycare in town, and I can't tell you how many friends would say, I'm pregnant, when should I get on the list? Do you have an in? Can you make a referral? It's competitive to get your kids in daycare, and that affects our workforce. So when I look at workforce needs in my community, the availability, the cost of childcare, Mr. Chairman, it's really expensive. And so the notion that we would try and make it more difficult for people operating small, home-based care facilities just seems absurd to me. So I appreciate the committee for working on this, for adopting a good amendment, but just would urge you to vote aye. This is a real pressing need, and I also think it reflects personal property and just that this is a residential use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my district, I have 10 incorporated municipalities, and in 5 of them, this is the only option we have. In the rural areas, there are no formal daycares. So without doing this at home, it doesn't get done. Thank you.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'll just tag on to the previous 2 speakers. I just think we have a lot of places in Wyoming where we have daycare deserts. There just aren't any. And as the good senator from, Laramie County mentioned, having to get on a list, months in advance, that's scary. I was very fortunate with my 4 children. I had wonderful daycare, maybe one of the best ladies on the planet. She was probably a better mom than me, actually. But honestly, I think we've got to have this. We're seeing that as a deficiency in Wyoming. And I think, as I've noticed in my area, there's some of the ones that have been available in the past are retiring and getting out of the business. And so we've got to do what we can to fix this, because if we want people in our state to stay here, we've got to be able to provide affordable childcare services. So I hope you'll vote for this bill.
Senator Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question. I know in our area, daycare is not a residential use, so if a private homeowner does want to have a daycare, it does require a variance if it's in the city limits. So I'm just wondering how this bill will mesh in with that. It is, if you ask for a variance, you do have to notify the landowners around you at a certain distance so that they can weigh in. Some residential areas might not work well for this, so I'm just wondering how that all plays into this.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted no in committee. I see this as a property rights issue. If you kind of look at the numbers, there's less than 10% of Wyoming residential areas are covered by homeowners associations that this bill would even apply to. So, there's a shortage of daycare, there's no doubt about it, possibly due to the regulations we have and on and on and on. But we're dealing with 10% of the housing units to try to fix a problem of 100%. And the point about the dichotomy between local community requirements, which they might say, well, childcare is a commercial use. This bill started out with 15 children. Now imagine you live on a cul-de-sac and that this bill enables someone to open a facility. Now it's 10, it was 15. That's a lot of traffic. Everybody's got to come pick up. Imagine they were 10 separate families. Homeowners associations are private contracts where people seek to be covered by the restrictions. And as a result, they pay more for their houses. It's free enterprise, privateness. It's being able to have places where people don't park their campers out in front. That's important to some people. I hope they don't drive by my house. But, Mr. Chairman, there is something sacred about people being able to contract, purchase property, put in restrictions so they can have what they want. Like-minded people, nobody's forcing them. And now we have more flexibility in this bill with this Senate amendment, which I agree with. But I'm telling you, this is a bad precedent to just say, having 10 kids at the end of a cul-de-sac is a residential use and you guys can't mess with that. That's a bad precedent. We've got to find a better way to fix this situation.
Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been dealt with, of course, in a lot of places, and there is an issue about volume of traffic. There is an issue about safety. Some places aren't appropriate. And above all, you joined an HOA and agreed to the requirements of joining that HOA. Now, all of a sudden, the deal has changed because we are going to tell them what to do. Because there's other issues going on here besides an HOA. I think this is really for one particular area. It certainly is not appropriate in all areas, but I think if you made a contract and you have an expectation as a property owner, how could someone then change your expectation by saying, no, we're just going to allow whatever we want to do here with daycare? You're going to have a lot of traffic. Where's the parking? Some places don't allow for the parking. There's gonna be situations that it just won't work safely for the public. And it's a taking, it's a flat out taking to the people that joined that HOA on and against this bill, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to clarify some confusion that's emerged in this discussion. HOAs, and we just adopted the amendment. If an HOA is silent on childcare, then it's permitted use, it's residential use. What the amendment we adopted what we just adopted says, HOAs, this doesn't cover those where it's clearly and expressly prohibited childcare. HOAs can still clearly and expressly prohibit childcare. So, but that has to be a decision of your HOA. All this is saying is clarifying that daycares are residential use. Rather than trying to have this discussion about whether or not it should be licensed or rezoned as a commercial use. That's what we're getting after, Mr. Chairman. So if your HOA still wants to vote for this and say no more home daycare use, I think that's still permitted under this bill. So just wanted to offer that clarifying information. We're getting a little off topic.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, there was a question asked about the municipal procedure of variance where commercial use is forbidden. This bill does not affect that at all. And the municipal procedure where you can seek a variance and then you can decide it on a case-by-case basis, you can look at the traffic, you can look at the nature of the neighborhood, et cetera. That procedure isn't changed at all. What this really deals with, as the bill is before you now, is flat prohibitions against any kind of commercial use, and defining this as a commercial use in an HOA. With the amendment, it clearly gives the HOA the authority, gives it actually probably closer to the authority that the municipalities have and use, but that is would be a protection that the municipalities will retain and is not affected by this act.
Senator Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're throwing around a lot of loose terms here, but nevertheless, an HOA gets there, and a lot of the rules that are there have nothing even to do with the HOA if it's a deeded covenant. So those deeded covenants will be in the deed. And it's real easy to say, well, you know, if it says no commercial use, and there are some that say that. But a lot of them are written in terms of shall not have any businesses that pertain to public driving onto the property. So, I mean, and I'm saying that loosely, but it's worded in such a way that you can't have any commercial activity that has customers that come to that property. So we heard somebody say that the HOA is a small number of the overall picture here. I would urge you to not go forward with this bill unless you carve out HOAs. I mean, those deeded covenants, or maybe even deeded covenants, maybe that's the way to do it, because there are some HOAs that don't have deeded covenants. So the deeded covenants are legally binding. And we're basically going to set precedent that doesn't matter anymore. Now somebody else says, hey, I want to have another kind of business, and now they go to court, and the court says, well, you know, the legislature did it over here, and maybe we can look differently at these deeded covenants. So this really has to do with the people that bought the property and why they chose to live there. And when they chose to live there, I don't want to have traffic. I don't want to have people that have, some of them will even say they don't want to have kids. And some of these places are gated communities maybe, or they have their own set of rules. Why are we getting in that? Why aren't we just saying something simple that does address where a city maybe has a restriction or the county has a restriction, but why are we getting all the way down into these deeded covenants? Because those people choose to live there for a reason. So one person's freedom is another one's tyranny. So let's be careful we don't go too far.
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The comments made by the senator from Laramie County were a lot of my thoughts as well. I like the premise of this bill, definitely, but I'm confused of whether this bill preempts, HOAs or deeded covenants. And, without further debate on that, I'm still in the fog of whether that effectively preempts those pre-existing, HOA covenants, and maybe somebody can explain that a little bit more. The senator from Laramie County, the other senator from Laramie County to my left kind of brought up that. This sort of cleared it up, I think, but I'm still a little bit confused. Thank you.
Senator McEwing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here we go again. We're shoving the government into a place it doesn't belong. But that's okay, we like this legislation. The other legislation we heard too earlier was we need the government out of that. But it's okay to put it in this, because we like this. At the end of the day, it's a tragedy that we have to pass legislation to run neighborhood daycares to begin with. We are so overregulated, it's not even funny. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Boner.
Mr. Chairman, I'll say it again for the third time on this floor. What the bill does, as amended, is it simply requires the HOA to clarify one way or the other. We are not coming in and dictating that it will be one way or the other. So this discussion about property rights of the individual, about the contract that it was entered into, whether it's in the deed or not, it simply does not apply. It could have applied until we amended it. It does not apply now. So let's be very clear about what the amendment does. It takes care of that issue, and the opponents, previous opponents of this bill, agree that that does take care of their concerns. So let's get focused here and focus on the bill as amended. All the previous discussion is off base.
Senator Rothfuss, do you want to speak? Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, on and for the bill. Thank you. Question?
Senator Ellis, did you want to speak? Question. No? Okay. Question being called. All those in favor of Senator, I believe it was Case's motion to adopt the House Bill 126, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it. The House Bill 126 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 43. Will the reading clerk please read the bill?
House Bill 43, State Forestry Good Neighbor Position, sponsored by S-Farm, an act relating to state lands.
You've heard the reading of the bill, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 43 do pass. And to explain this good little bill is Senator Kolb.
Senator Kolb.
Why, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully this bill will be a little smoother than the last. This is State Forestry Good Neighbor Positions. What this bill is doing is authorizing state forestry to pass through federal funds, not Wyoming state funds. It authorizes, they may hire up to 4 full-time employee positions and 6 at-will positions. The main purpose of doing this is to allow these funds to be used locally in the state, to do projects within the state, and complying with our local federal regulations, not federal regulations, state regulations, which are a lot less onerous. Frankly, I can tell you as being a contractor, I don't even attempt to go after federal contracts because it's so onerous. I do qualify, though, for in-state contracts such as this. Not that I'm a forestry cleanup fella, but that's what this would allow us to do, is basically use the money here locally, support the economy, clean up our forests, do the work the federal government, frankly, doesn't do very well at doing. So this is just a mechanism to do that. Most of the money is going to be spent, I think it's over 5 million. I don't have the exact number. I didn't realize I was going to be presenting the bill when I was listening to the bill. So I believe it's over $5 million. It's going to in fact be used for contracts within the state, and the rest of it's to handle the personnel. On and for the bill, ask for your favorable consideration, and I'll stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any further questions? Sensing that you're ready to vote, all those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable consideration of House Bill 43, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. House Bill 143 has passed the committee, or excuse me, not 143, House Bill 43 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 104. Will the reading clerk please read the bill?
House Bill 104, Omnibus Water Bill Planning, sponsored by the Water Committee, an act relating to water development projects.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Steinmetz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation House Bill 104 do pass. And I would ask that the Standing Committee amendment be read in at this time.
House Bill 104, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 1, line 8, after.
And I'll go ahead and move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 104. For an explanation of the bill, I would call on Senator French. For an explanation of the amendment, we'll call on Senator Hicks. But we'll do the bill first.
Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In an effort to get us out of here quickly, I'm going to honor Senator Anderson's request to read it word by word, all 7 pages, and very slowly. No, just kidding. I know we all want to get out of here. This is an omnibus water bill sponsored by the Select Water Committee, and it goes through, it was just a few days ago we went through this and passed it. It goes through and defines what the projects are, the dollar amounts. It's pretty descriptive, you know, which place, like on page 3, for example. Well, let's just go through it real quick here. Page 2 at the bottom, line 20 project, line 22, Alpine Water Master Plan, Bear Oil Water Master Plan, Chugwater Water Master Plan, Douglas Water Master Plan, Regional Water Plan, Converse County. Next page, Hudson Water Master Plan, on and on. So it explains it in your bill. And I would urge passage of it, and for the amendment, the good Senator Hicks will explain that amendment.
Senator Hicks, we'll need to move the amendment. It has been moved.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move, first reading amendment number 1 to Senate file, or House Bill 101, and ask for your favorable consideration.
What?
104.
Standing Committee Amendment.
Senator Hicks, it's
Let me try that again.
Standing
Mr.
Committee
Chairman,
amendment.
I move Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to House Bill 104. That work for you?
Thank you.
All right. So, members of the body, what this does is there's 2 large programs that are available for drought mitigation in the Colorado River Basin. The Bureau of Reclamation will be implementing one of those, and the Bureau of Reclamation is authorized to contract with public entities such as the state and the Wyoming Water Development for grants, contracts, and financial assistance agreements to provide and to conduct activities that impact the drought within the Colorado River Basin. The Water Development shall continue to be authorized to contract with the Bureau of Reclamation to accept these funds Contracts and financial assistance agreements would be provided through the water development to water users and water right holders within the basin to implement these conservation activities. That's what Section 6 does. Those funds come to the Bureau of Reclamation. If we turn over to Section 5 or Section 7, through the Farm Bill, they have a program called the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. This section would authorize the Water Development Commission to administer $25 million and grant funds to water users within the Colorado River Basin of Wyoming to implement water conservation practices to address the drought conditions in the Colorado River Basin. These two provisions just make sure that the water development has all the authorities granted to them under the water bill to be able to deliver these federal programs to water rights holders. With that, Mr. President, or Mr. Chairman, I'd stand for any questions. If there is no questions, I'd ask for adoption.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting my understanding things. So I'm wanting to know what conditions are put on the state of Wyoming when we apply for these funds, because I've heard a lot this session. We don't like all the red strings attached, the federal money, but here we are looking at 2 federal acts that have significantly large federal dollars. I'm curious, I know the bringers of this bill and this amendment are probably very aware, but what ties our hands when we accept these dollars or apply for these dollars? And then second, these are fairly significant amendments, and this is a bill that had been worked by your Select Water Committee, brought to the Agriculture Committee. Just wondering why the timing on this is a little delayed and why this wasn't brought during the interim. Thank you.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A follow-up to those is, I don't see in the language about the necessity of matching funds. I want to be clear whether participation in these programs, if they should require matching funds, if that is authorized in this new language. And second, about the project limitations. In this bill, so far, before this amendment is adopted, we are very specific about what projects are being authorized. This would seem to open up to a lot of other projects. And if they're solely federally funded, maybe that's more comforting. But if they have a state requirement, match requirement, how is that handled? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hicks.
So, Mr. President, first of all, the state doesn't have to accept any of these funds. But if we want to implement these programs, traditionally these would go through individual contracts with water rights holders with the federal government. What we're trying to do is set up a situation here where the state, because we have the capability through the Water Development Program, to administer these federal funds. So under those programs, we have to comply with those regulations of those federal funds. So specifically to the RCPP program, those are going to be implemented like they normally would through Farm Bill programs, what they call the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. And the way that works is an individual water rights holder applies to a local, in their local office, USDA office, to participate in that program. It goes through a ranking system. If that ranks high enough, those funds are awarded, and then that producer can be able to go ahead and implement that project. Could be ditch linings, diversion structures, sprinklers, or all of those natures. So that program already exists today and is delivered in every county in the state of Wyoming. This just provides an additional pot of money for those counties and those offices that reside in the Colorado River because they have a specific program for drought mitigation. So do we have to have additional conditional requirements on the state of Wyoming? The answer is no. Matching funds, most of those programs that you have through these federal Farm Bill programs provide a cost share basis. And each one of those will come out for each individual practice, and they'll say, let's use an example that you're going to do gated pipe. They'll say, we're going to provide so much money for the gated pipe. I'm not aware of any of those programs that pay 100%. So then those costs are back onto the producer that signs up to participate in that program. So in that case, there is matching funds. With dealing with the Bureau of Reclamation, what we're trying to do here is, rather than have all the producers sign contracts with a federal agency in an out-of-state office, is to efficiently administer these programs to the benefit of the state of Wyoming. We're in a drought situation in the Colorado, and we could potentially face a curtailment, which goes through prior appropriation doctrine. We start reducing all those water users in the basin. So keep in mind, within that basin, the first ones that come off are our large, big industrial users, and then your municipal users, and then we get down to those junior water rights users for agricultural purpose. Again, this program is designed to provide those conservation alternatives for those individuals. We don't have the exact final rules from the Bureau of Reclamation yet. We know the program's there, we know the money's there. What we're anticipating those to come out in March. This is, if we wait until next year and they promulgate these rules, you can see these funds have to be obligated by the end of 2026. We lose an entire year. There's approximately right now, I think, 105 or 135 million that will be divvied up amongst the 4 upper basin states. And if we don't get these programs set up to be able to deliver these, then our water users are likely not going to be able to participate in that program. And we may lose the opportunity to do significant conservation activities within the Colorado River Basin in Wyoming. I hope that answers the questions. If not, I'd stand for more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the good bringer of the question is, I hope she's listening somewhere. I don't see her here any longer, but the question about the interim work and why this was brought, it was actually discussed in the interim, but we didn't know the exact language, so the committee did hear about all of this. It's just we didn't know the exact language to put in an amendment at the time, so we came back to our staff when we had a little more time here before session, and we got this all completed. And so that is why in the interim, we didn't adopt this, but we did discuss it. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the amendment? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of Senator Hicks's motion to adopt the Standing Committee Amendment of the Whole, number 1, to House Bill 104, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The Standing Committee Amendment has passed. We're back on the bill. Any more discussion on the bill? Senator French.
I would just ask for everybody's approval on this. It's a good bill. It provides services, whatever you want to call it, to everybody in the state. Thank you.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know we just adopted the Standing Committee Amendment, but I want to be clear. Would a water rights holder or other applicant be able to not work through that state commission that this bill is on and still have access to those federal funds? I want to remind us, this is federal funds. So there's still access directly and not as opposed to having to go through the State Water Development Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion on the bill? Senator Hicks.
Well, that's actually, Mr. Chairman, that's back on the amendment. We voted on that, but I can't answer that question. There'll still be USDA programs available in every field office that have the same type of funded activity. They just come out of a different pot of money. So I hope that answers that. With the BOR money, that may be a little bit different. Again, we are waiting right now for the final rules on how that money is going to be distributed. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Sensing you are ready for the question, all those in favor of Senator Steinmetz's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 104, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. House Bill 104 has passed the House. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Passed the Senate, excuse me. The Committee of the Whole, yes. I'll get it right, third time's a charm. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable members, in the gallery, right in front of you is the one-day Teen Pack class, ages 8 through 12 years old, I believe. And I just want to thank the students for visiting the Senate. And quite frankly, honorable members, I think there is 1 or 2 future state senators up there. So please give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
Well, welcome to the Senate. Hope you're enjoying your visit. Okay, any further? Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I move the microphone.
Yes. There you go.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee of the whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Mr. President. Chair is yours.
Being clerk will read the committee of the whole report.
Mr. President, your committee of the whole, having had under considerations bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Bill 126 engrossed, do pass amended. House Bill 43 do pass. House Bill 104 do pass amended. Senator Pappas, Chairman.
Senator Pappas.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
Heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Report is passed. Signing of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 24.
House Enrolled Act number 24, being original House Bill 32, Geologic Sequestration Unitization Amendments, an act relating to environmental quality.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 24, originally being House Bill 32. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 25.
House Enrolled Act number 25, being original House Bill 54, Wyoming Reads Day, an act relating to legal time and holidays.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 25, appears to be House Bill 54. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 26.
House Enrolled Act number 26, being original House Bill 81, Public Officer Training Amendments, an act relating to the administration of the government.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 26, originally being House Bill 81. I have so signed. Do we have any reports, Randy? Any kind? All cleaned up? Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move the Senate stand recess.
Adjourned.
Adjourned, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand adjourned until 1 p.m. March 4th.
Senator Kinski.
It's time for announcements. Mr. Chairman, your Appropriations Committee number 2, upon noon recess on Monday, will meet to hear re-referrals. So far, I show HB 4, Property Tax Refund Program, HB 166, Education Savings Accounts, others as received. That will be in room 113. Also on Monday at 8 a.m., the Joint Conference Committee will meet in E301. There will be a brief informational public meeting, after which we will go into an executive session to obtain legal advice.
Mr. President, may I briefly have privilege of the floor for one last announcement prior to adjourning? Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. President, today we are visited by a group called Capital Collaborations. I believe they're up here, if they'd stand up, which brings together various individuals and members from statewide organizations, including HOPE, Hispanic Organization for Progress in Education, the CHAIR Project of the Equality State Policy Center, Wyoming Independent Citizens Coalition, CHISPA, and Wyoming Civic Engagement Network. These groups and individuals are empowered to collaborate on community issues such as education and health access, growing civic engagement, empowering voters, and building cultural inclusion. For some of the attendees today, this is their first ever visit to the Capitol to see the legislature in action. And these groups hope this can forge better relationships between them and their elected officials. They thank you for your work on behalf of the state. Let's welcome them to the Senate.
Welcome. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, question for the Appropriations Committee on their announcement of meeting at noon recess. With the start time that was announced, I don't think there will be a noon recess. What time will the Appropriations Committee meet on those re-referrals?
Senator Kinski.
On Monday upon noon recess, would you rather it was 12:30? Okay, let's say 12, no?
Let's try today. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, 1 o'clock is the time we're coming back
I'll be
in.
done today.
Yeah. Noon. Okay.
Restate it so everybody gets it. I think we're all confused up here.
Monday, March 4th, Appropriations Committee number 2 will meet upon noon recess in W1113 to hear all re-referrals.
We don't have a noon recess. It would be at noon.
12, excuse me,
Thank you.
12.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder for our travel, recreation, wildlife, and cultural resources, we'll be meeting as soon as you can get down to room W02 and online to hear House Bill 60 engrossed, excess wildlife population damage amendments. The sooner we can get down there, I know that we might have some quorum issues between us and the minerals, so if we can just get ours knocked out first thing, then some of the folks can break away from minerals. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our Judiciary Committee number 1 will meet Monday, March 4th at 11 a.m. in the Capitol Extension Room W4 and online to consider House Bill 134, Property Tax Deferral Program, House Bill 90, Newborn Child Safe Havens, Age of Child, House Bill 92, Protection of Parental Rights, and House Bill 125, Repeal Gun Zones and Preemption Amendments. Thank you.
Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 5, Joint Agricultural, State Public Lands and Water Resources will meet Tuesday, March 5th, 8 a.m. in Capitol Extension Room 6 and online to discuss interim topics. Thank you.
Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I promise a short meeting. Minerals meeting Friday, today, 12 noon upon recess in room 4 downstairs to hear House Joint Resolution 3 engrossed. It's carryover from earlier. Promise a short meeting. Ask for that. Thank you, please.
Further announcement, Senator Steinmetz? Nope. Okay. Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, your joint conference committee will be meeting with the like committee on Senate File 2, the legislative budget, Monday. It looks like at noon, and I believe it's in room 113 downstairs. Our conferees are Hicks, Ellis, and Barlow. So noon Monday.
Very good. Thank you. You heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. This is unbelievable. Way to go, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. 1 o'clock. That's 1 o'clock, Monday, March 4th. We're adjourned.